Hello, everyone. This is Iggy, and welcome back to Iggy's Toy Parade and Soldier Review. This video today is going to be somewhat of a part two video, or a follow-up video for the one that I posted yesterday about the M3 Lee tank by Newray Toys. Now, Newray Toys was established in 1987 in Hong Kong, and they also have offices in California. And I believe they have an office in Southern California and one in near Camarillo, California, because I remember driving through the countryside and seeing a industrial building with the Newray logo on it. So at any rate, they have a couple offices in California and their headquarters in Hong Kong. Now, this particular model was made in 2020 and released under the Newray name. We mentioned in the other video that testers released this same model. It's more of a toy than a model. It's only about 36 pieces. A regular model has over 200 pieces to it. So a serious scale modeler would not find this kit very interesting unless his primary focus was in painting details. In such a case, then you could do quite a bit with this, customizing it. Now, the build took me one night. However, it was a lot of frustration for me, and I'll get into the reasons for that. One of the primary problems I had to begin with is that I did not find the instructions until I was 2/3 of the way through the model. Now, I did find them eventually on the kitchen floor. Let me show you what we have here. Now, when putting this kit together, step one was somewhat easy. I would say someone with good manual dexterity would not have any difficulty putting this together. I did. My fingertips are somewhat numb, so I had trouble manipulating some of the parts. Now, this is the turret with the 37 millimeter gun. It attaches to the superstructure, and the way that's done is you place this on the top here, and then this piece comes up here and attaches on the bottom, and there's a screw that you put on there. Well, I kept dropping the screw on the kitchen floor, and I'll show you why. I don't even know if you can see that, but that's the size of the screw that you have to put into the part to put them together. And I had so much trouble with this. I kept dropping it on the floor. So that was a little difficult for me to work with. The second problem I had with it was with the chassis. Now, that's step two. And my problem was I didn't have these instructions. So what I was doing was putting the road wheels onto the suspension and then trying to attach the suspension to the chassis. Well, what would happen is it would keep popping out. There's a male and female. Here's the male, and this is the female. And I couldn't line them up properly, and the road wheels kept dropping on the floor. So it became a circus trying to get this together. However, when I found the instructions and I figured out that the road wheels go on first, then this part, it was so simple that I was able to complete it in no time at all. Okay, the next step after that is putting on the track. The track in this case is more or less like a rubber band. And let me see if I can show it on the instruction there. It's like a rubber band that fits over the road wheels, which is easy to do. However, the track is loose, so you have to work with it to keep it on there. It keeps slipping off. So that was a drawback. But the part I liked about it is that it was easy to put on. And then here's the finished model. You attach this superstructure to the chassis with screws, and I showed you the size of those screws and why they were difficult for me to handle. So let's take a look at the model in its completed form, and I'll spin this around so you can get a view of it all the way around. Now this is listed as a 132 scale model. However, I noticed that it seems a little bit small, and I suspect that it's actually a 135 scale model, because I have a couple of Grant M3s put out by Forces of Valor, and those are excellent, by the way, if you are looking to collect tanks such as this, the Forces of Valor tanks, and also Ultimate Soldier. However, I don't know if Ultimate Soldier put out an M3. I'm not sure on that. But the Forces of Valor did, and they're very good, and they're larger than this. So I suspect this is a 135 scale. Now, a minor complaint is that you look at the gun tube, and I don't know if you can see it here, but there's no opening on the barrel there. It's just solid. And of course the 37 has none either. In that case, I'm more forgiving because that's just too tiny. So there's the model. Now I'd like to show you what one looked like in the real world. Now the Americans built a plant in Detroit for Chrysler to make these tanks, and Chrysler put out about 3,000 of them, and 1,000 went to the British, and I believe several thousand of them went to the Soviets. Now, I've never seen pictures of the M3 in service with the Russian army during the war. I have seen a lot of Shermans. My landlord in Germany had an interesting story about a kid in his platoon. He said he was a farm boy and not very bright, but he had knocked out 13 Sherman tanks by crawling under them and then attaching a magnetic mine to the bottom of the tank, and then the tank would go by and the mine would explode and destroy the tank. And he had done this 13 times, and I said, well, what finally happened to this kid? And he said, oh, they ran over him. So his luck, I guess, gave out. But what happened, he said, is a driver ran over him and then started turning the tank, and they ground him into the mud. So that was the end of his career as a tank buster, or I don't know what you'd call an infantryman that knocks out so many tanks. But my landlord's story is kind of interesting. I suspect he was in the SS, although he never admitted to such. He was in Hitler Youth, and he was drafted when he was 16, and he served on the Oder River and in the east, and he also served in the west against the Americans. And I believe the 12th SS served on both fronts like that. So he may have been in the SS. He was a tough bastard, though. He had scars on his body from where he had been shot. And it looks weird. It looks like someone, dug out with a melon scooper his flesh and then put it back in cottage cheese and painted it flesh color. So his scars were very weird looking. And I remember seeing 4 of them on his body. I asked him about it, and he said he had been machine gunned. So he's a pretty lucky guy to survive that. He was captured at the end of the war by the Russians, but he escaped, and he said he survived on eating grass. And I was always in awe of the guy. He always used to say to me, Richard, you are useless, because I didn't know how to fix cars. And I guess because I'm useless. Anyway, I really liked the man. He was very interesting, and he was a good guy. He treated me like his son. He had a very cute daughter, but that's another story. Uh, I, of course, was married at the time. Anyway, I wasn't blind. So, I'd like to show you a picture. I got sort of sidetracked with my landlord's story, but let me show you a picture of a M3 in service in North Africa. And it's just very rare to see pictures of this tank. More than likely, you're going to see pictures of a Sherman tank or other tanks, but not so much the M3. Now, I have seen pictures of the M3 Grant in a desert setting, but the only picture I've ever seen of an M3 in American service is this picture I'm going to show you now. I forgot to mark the page, so I'm thumbing through the book right now. I apologize for that. That was not very well thought out by me. I should have stumbled across it by now. Oh, this is awkward. And I think I passed it. All right, well, maybe I won't show you a picture of the M3 in American service. Now my brother gets after me about this. He said, "Why do you do that?" It's because I film these things live. I try not to follow a script because I don't want to. Well, here it is. I bypassed it. All right, well, let's take a look at this picture. Let me move the camera back. And here's a crew of an M3, a lead tank. And you can see there's 6 men. The M3 had a crew of 6. It must have been pretty crowded in there. I was on an M60A1 and M60A3. It's very tight quarters inside of a tank. But you can see the turret with the 37 millimeter. You can see partially some of the 75 gun, but what you can really see is the size of the 75 millimeter shell. And that gives you an idea of what the M3 lead looked like in service. Also, they were in British service. The Australians and Canadians also used the M3. Grant version, and they served in Burma. Now let's give you a shot at this. Now, tank crews, of course, would always name their tanks. In this case, they named it Atlanta 2, perhaps as a homage to General Lee. I don't know why Lee never defended Atlanta. That would have been General Hood, and then before General Hood was, oh God, my memory is slipping away. He was the general that was disliked by Davis because he kept retreating, although he didn't really have much choice. Oh, I'll think of it later. It's very annoying that the older I get, the more I start having those moments. But anyway, this is interesting in that it shows all the things that the tank crew take with them when they're out in the field. See a lot of tents and rucksacks and whatnot hanging from the side of the tank. Now this picture here is interesting. This is a camouflaged M3 Grant, and they camouflaged it to try and make it look like a Bedford heavy truck. The reason they did that is the Germans were very keen on capturing British transportation because they had very little of their own. A lot of their supplies were being intercepted by British fighters and also by the British Navy before they could get to North Africa. And here's a British crew with their M3 Grant, and they're having a training session. Okay, guys, that's the M3 by Newray Toys. I'm going to spin it around for you one last time so you can get a... I'll lift up the camera tripod a little bit here, and we'll spin it around. And there we have it. The M3 by Newray Toys. I want to thank you for coming along today. This is Iggy's saying thanks for your subscriptions and your likes, and I'll try and post another video as soon as I can. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for getting Iggy with it, and happy trails. Bye, guys.